This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Feisty, fearless, and fair. She's an Emmy-winning journalist from the White House to war zones, telling all sides of the story. This is the Rita Cosby Show.
Lovely Rita, meet a maid, nothing can come between us. When it gets dark, I tow your heart away.
And it's a busy Friday night here on the Rita Cosby Show. There's so much news happening. And first, let's start with the war against communism. Because President Trump is saying he is putting his foot down, that America will not be a communist nation. And of course, he's talking about the 3 DSA candidates. I should say 2, and the other one basically, even though he says he's a former DSA, do you think there's ever a former DSA? I don't think so. And they are Daria-Liza Chevalier, Claire Vega, and Brad Lander, of course, who won the New York primaries this week. And pretty much, obviously, they're in blue areas. They're almost shoo-ins to be members of Congress. I mean, it's a very, very Democratic district. And the more I hear, the more I think these people are just downright nuts. I mean, Chevalier believes that if you have committed murder, then you still should not be deported, that it would be racist to have you deported. I would contend it's dangerous to keep you here. I mean, this is just common sense. I've covered politics a long time, guys, but this is really loony land. And President Trump is clearly sounding the alarm, saying this is downright dangerous, this is wacky, and America, wake up. Listen to what President Trump said a little bit ago.
We have a country that's just the hottest. It just is so hot. And I'm working really hard to make it even better. We're going to get rid of some of the flaws. We're going to make it even better. But the biggest thing we have to do is we have to stop this horrible thread of cancer that's permeating our country called communism. We have to stop it because that's what it's about. That's what they want to do quietly. And we ask that God will continue to bless the United States of America, and God will bless the United States of America because of people like you.
And he was at the Faith and Freedom Coalition, led by my buddy Ralph Reed there. And in the middle of it all, he's sitting there saying this is downright concerning for our country, not just for the Democratic Party. I contend, you guys, that it is a gift to the Republicans this midterm because always usually the party that is not in power, those are usually the ones who make some strides in the midterm elections. So in other words, Trump's there, you know that usually it's going to be the Democrats. But this is downright wacky. And if I were a political consultant, I would start putting the ads together right now. I'd start showing this woman, Daria-Liza Chevalier, who won and knocked off veteran Adriano Espaillat, head of the Hispanic Caucus this week. And I'd show her saying it over and over again that we should have no borders, we should have no police, we should have no prisons. And then I'd show a scene of Mad Max. I mean, this is what it is. This is so kooky. This is so crazy and so nutty. And yet they're saying with a straight face, that is the plan. And we're going to play some stuff tonight because there's a whole bunch of new things that came out today from the Democratic Party. And one of them is Alyssa Slotkin, who came out And she essentially said, yeah, it is time for new leadership in the House and the Senate. If that is not a huge, blow to the bow of the Democratic Party, especially to Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, their days are definitely numbered in terms of being political leaders for the Democrats. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And you are listening to The Rita Cosby Show. Well, just a little bit ago, we got an update also on the state of the battle against Iran. Now, the U.S. and Iran, of course, we've been trying to do whatever we can to decimate them. We definitely have under President Trump. There's no doubt about it. But we just got a little bit of a damage assessment, if you will. And one of the things that they said was that they hit a whole bunch of radar sites. This is the U.S. military drone and missile launch sites all along the coast. They also hit this area called Keshem Island and a couple other locations that are right there in the Strait of Hormuz. And of course, this comes after they were hitting a Singapore cargo ship. I'm telling you, the IRGC, we got to just pummel it. I think we've actually been a little too nice when it comes to dealing with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, because these are the guys who are still launching these drones, and it's never going to stop. It's going to be like, okay, I hit here, I hit back, vice versa. So I actually think it's time to really do something significant to the IRGC. And yes, the American military is still in the area. We just got an update that there's 25 U.S. warships. That's a lot of might still in the area. 50,000 U.S. service members right in that area. So that's quite a lot of military might. So President Trump isn't fooling around. He hasn't pulled out any of those assets yet. But are we going to do this sort of cat and mouse? Like, okay, here's a little bit of a tit for tat. I give him a lot of credit for the restraint he's shown. I mean, it's been remarkable to see the restraint he's shown. But my personal feeling, I think it's time to really hit the IRGC hard, because otherwise it's just going to keep going and going. And here's what President Trump said earlier today. He was at, as I mentioned, that Faith and Freedom conference at the Hilton. By the way, it's the first time he's been back to the Hilton since that attempted shooting took place during the Washington Correspondents' Dinner, the White House Correspondents' Dinner there. It's a big, huge ballroom, and it was packed today with many, many religious leaders and many others. And this is what he had to say. He was playing coy. This is before the strikes happened by the U.S., but you could tell he was planning on doing something.
You said that Iran violated the ceasefire.
Yeah,
Will they face any consequences?
Well, you'll find out.
Do you consider the ceasefire to still be in place?
I don't like the fact that they took a shot yesterday, actually 4. We knocked down 3 at a ship. Not an Allied ship, but a ship, a very expensive ship. And it was fine, but it took a little beating. They shouldn't be doing that, so you'll find out.
Will the U.S.
You'll find out.
Will the U.S. respond? What is your message to
Will I respond? You're going to find out.
Sir, why do you think they did that at the talks? You've said repeatedly they're going well. What do you think the motivation was for the ship?
They're a little bit different. That's why I think of it. 47 years, no president did what we're doing. So you just asked a question, you'll find out.
You just asked the question, you'll find out. And probably about an hour after that, we all found out. The whole world found out. And also, J.D. Vance putting out a statement just a little bit ago, essentially saying, look, we don't want to do this kind of thing, but violence will be met with violence. So don't think we're going to take all this lying down. That ain't going to happen. So that's the only message that they get in that part of the world, is you're going to be tough to them. Otherwise, they walk all over you. And that certainly is not happening with the Trump administration. Meantime, there is so much talk about the Supreme Court rulings on immigration. We talked a little bit about this yesterday when it first came out. And now there's been a slew of reactions, guys. One of them, of course, from Zoran Mandani, the mayor of New York, who said he will never accept the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling, which allows President Trump to stop deportation protection for Haitian and Syrian migrants. These are these temporary protective status, which is just what it means. It's temporary. But yet, Zoran Mandani says we will never acquiesce. We will never give in. We will never allow them to be deported? You're going to break the law? I mean, this is crazy. First off, he has the whole sanctuary city policy. Then they've extended it to sanctuary state under Kathy Hochul and Zora Mandani. And now he's saying, I'm going to, defy the Supreme Court? That really is crazy. And there are a number of Democrats like Seth Moulton and others who've come out and said, you know what? We'll pack the court. If we don't like the decision, we're going to start adding more justices. So if we get in power, we can add some more and then they can override the other ones. Does that sound like democracy to you? It sounds to me like they will cut the rules any way that they can. And you got to hear this guy, Keith Boykin. He is a former aide of Bill Clinton. He was on CNN. And of course, he said the fact that Donald Trump may want to deport some of these people who are under temporary protective status. It's supposed to only be there like if there's a problem in the country, whether it's like political or violence, and it's supposed to be temporary. And yet they've been here, some of them, since the 1990s. That's quite temporary. That's a great kind of temporary, right? And so now they're saying, well, we're going to have to review these ones. And Keith Boykin thinks it's racist.
But the larger problem is that this is a country that is now governed by a racist foreign policy and a racist immigration policy. At the same time, Stephen Miller is out here claiming that we don't allow anybody into this country for asylum anymore. The doors are closed. We're allowing white South Africans to come to this country. Those are the only people who can come to this country right now, white South Africans. But 350,000 Haitian Americans who are black can't stay here, even though they have been here, many of them for many years. They can't stay here. They're tax-paying people. They are law-abiding people. There are people who actually do jobs and create jobs. There are actually people who are doing jobs that some Americans don't want to do.
No, they want the jobs. They just don't want to do it for that wage.
Cleaning toilets.
They don't want to do it for that wage.
In a hotel.
And big business, the healthcare industry loves to keep them here. It's modern slave labor.
Caroline, you're not the only person at the table.
Just a second. I will say.
It got a little heated there, right? It's racist, right? Because it surely can't be that maybe it's well beyond temporary, well beyond the intention of the plan. Oh, no, it's got to be racist. And I wanted to play this clip for you guys because this was one of the wildest moments that I saw in the last 24 hours or so. Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen, of course, of Homeland Security, in charge of the border, in charge of those deportations. And in fact, that's what the Supreme Court said, was that it's not really their decision to oversee. It's really the Homeland Security Department and the administration are the ones who decide when sort of temporary status has been overrun or abused and it's expired, and if you want to deport. So Secretary Mullen is testifying before Congress, and Rosa DeLauro, this is the congresswoman from Connecticut with the purple hair, and this was one of the wildest exchanges I have ever heard. She starts talking about the 3,000 kids that she says are missing under the Trump administration. And then he throws back 450,000 under Biden. And somehow you left that out, Rosa. But listen, things are getting bad. You thought it was bad on CNN back and forth? Wait till you hear this.
Ranking member, the floor is yours.
We'll pay no attention to the remediation session, Mr. Chairman. I do appreciate, Mr. Secretary, your concern about the lost children. But I also want to remind people that let's not forget what was a Trump administration policy initiated by Stephen Miller, which was to let us separate children from their families at the border, because this would be a way to curtail or to stop immigration, separating children from their families, how to hurt them the most. I asked and had a phone conversation with Secretary Azar at the time. I know I was in my living room with my 2-year-old grandson on my lap trying to have this conversation. And I asked him if there was a way in which he had a list of how you could reunite children with their families. And he assured me that we did. You know, when you take your clothes to the cleaners, they give you a tag and you then go back and you retrieve your clothes. When you had luggage, you go and get your luggage is returned. Well,
I wish the Biden administration would have done that.
Let me just say this to you, sir. Again, it is my time. 3,900 children were separated from their families.
450,000 kids were lost under the Biden administration. You didn't say a word about
Mr. Secretary, do not interrupt.
Don't you point your finger at me. Don't
I
be a
will
hypocrite.
point my finger
Don't you be
at
a hypocrite
you.
then. Then you be as you should be as upset about the 450,000 kids that were lost. You didn't say a word about it. For 4 years, you never said a word.
Mr. Secretary.
Could you put him in his place for
don't yell at me.
You should be put in your place.
Mr. Secretary, if you would like 4 minutes for a closing statement when everybody's done, I'll give you that. But while members are on their 8 minutes, I need them to have their 8 minutes.
I started my comments.
I appreciate that. My issue is that they say this for sound bites, and I'm not going to let them say
what did
like
you
that.
do just recently for sound bites? I sympathize with the 400.
We are going to have something resembling order here.
Really? You're going to have order? When was that going to start? Because it wasn't there. I mean, it is so hypocritical. Oh, we're worried about the kids. We all should be worried about the kids, but no mention of 450,000. No mention of it. And it was also Obama who put the, quote, kids in cages. Secretary Mullen should have brought that up, too. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. And we'll take your calls when we come back here on The Rita Cosby Show.
It's the Rita Cosby Show.
And we're playing a little Lionel Richie, my buddy Lionel Richie. I'll have to share with you guys my story of when I got to hang out with Lionel Richie. He's one of the greatest guys ever. And I just had the most amazing time with him. We went to a concert. You got to look on my Twitter feed. I got a great picture of him. It was from a while ago. But poor Lionel Richie right now has been having some trouble with his health. And this guy is like super dynamic. I mean, in person, he's like a great dancer, obviously a great singer. And earlier in the week, he felt dizzy during one of the concerts. He had to literally sit down in the middle of a song, and then he had to end that concert. And the word just coming down now that he's had to cancel 2 more concerts. So we're hoping the great Lionel Richie is going to be back, since he's a ballerina girl dancing on the ceiling. How many big hits has this guy done? And he is one of the greatest ever, and just one of the nicest guys ever, too. So we're wishing you well, Lionel. Hope you get better real soon. Let's go to Al in Yonkers on line 5. Go ahead, Al.
Yeah, hi, Rita. Thanks. Rita, I wanted to say I agree with the Supreme Court ruling today in regards to status for the Haitians and the Syrians. And I believe in politics, you always have to be consistent. It's a treacherous business, but you have to be true to the people. I believe that Mondami, he's everything I'm against. I think he's a terrible mayor. It's a sad situation that he is the mayor.
Yeah.
But at least he's consistent. When you go to Rockland County, you see Lawler, who's a Republican. He'll be carrying the conservative banner in November. And he voted to let the Haitians stay here.
Yeah, Al, hold on, though, 1 second, okay? Hold on. I'm going to carry you over because I want to kind of explain why that happened. I think you know why.
This is the Rita Cosby Show. The Rita Cosby Show presents Back the Blue.
And this Back the Blue segment coming from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, where a police officer is being hailed a hero after his quick response saved a young boy from drowning in a pond. Officer Zach Vick had just grabbed his morning coffee when he heard over dispatch about a possible drowning in a park. He didn't originally get the dispatch, but he happened to only be 2 miles away when the call came in, and he said, I knew I needed to rush there. So when he got to the scene, he spotted the boy struggling in the middle of the pond. He said, I could tell that he could not swim and that he was starting to go under. So the officer rushed out, through the water. He was able to grab the boy by the wrist and bring him to the shore. The boy apparently had slipped away from his home that morning, initially unbeknownst to his parents. Thank goodness somebody else had spotted him in the pond. Luckily, thanks to Officer Vic, the boy is safe and back home with his family. And great work by our men and women in blue. Well, before we go back to Al in Yonkers and take the rest of your calls, we always love hearing from you here on the Rita Cosby Show. Well, tonight, many people are reacting to that Supreme Court decision, and this is lifting the temporary protective status. In other words, protective status, temporary, means just that. It's not long-term, stay in the country and do whatever the heck you want. And guess what? Under Joe Biden, it quadrupled. So you have to wonder why. Oh, we'd love to have it. It's interesting, too. It's certain countries that he actually allowed them in. Countries that might typically maybe vote a little more Democratic. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Well, here is Congressman Pete Aguilar, Democrat of California, and this is what he had to say about the temporary protective status being lifted essentially by the Supreme Court.
What we saw out of the Supreme Court with this ruling was dreadful. It was dreadful to families. It was dreadful to our economy, and it will harm each and every one of the states in our nation. Families should have certainty. That's what Democrats have advocated for, the certainty that TPS is there and that TPS matters. And to have a president who can unilaterally change the rules as he goes is shameful and awful.
And here is Caroline Sunshine. She used to work with President Trump, and she says the key word is temporary.
It is. And so the court's decision is actually really good for Haiti as a country, as a sovereign nation, because the first word in TPS is temporary. It's always supposed to be temporary. And specifically in regards to the Haitians who have come here, the first batch came, I think, in 2010 after the earthquake in Haiti. It's been 16 years since the earthquake. So that's not temporary. And at what point, by American standards, are we going to decide that Haiti is livable again? When's that day coming? Is that coming in 6 months? Is that coming in a year? Probably not anytime soon. And one thing that doesn't get talked
a lot about is maybe they should go back to their country if the conditions are right. And it is the best thing for, quite frankly, for Haiti, especially if the conditions are right, to be able to say, okay, we're going to go back. And contribute back to that community. You can't have people, it's like overstaying, just a regular visa. You're supposed to come for like a year and a half. How many times did that happen that they overstay their visa? Same thing in this particular case. I mean, it's not their fault that they were given the temporary protected status, but you can't especially say, okay, we're just going to give that to hundreds of thousands of them. And in fact, on the Haitian end, it's literally hundreds of thousands of them that were granted. Under Joe Biden, I was seeing that it's 1.4 million overall were given this temporary protective status. And so that is a very, very, very big deal. 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. Let's go back to Al in Yonkers, line 5. Al, I'm sorry about that. We had a hard break there before.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Yeah, so let's go back. You were applauding Mondani. By the way, I agree with you that the one thing you can say about the mayor of New York is he is consistent. I mean, what he said he was going to do on the campaign trail, he said he doesn't like Israel. He stayed true to that. He didn't want to march in the parade. He said he was going to try to do a rent freeze. You saw what just happened the last 24 hours. He said, defund X and defund this, and I'm doing that. That's what he's trying. He's also trying to block ICE, the whole sanctuary city thing. And now you were taking it to Mike Lawler, right? So fill us in, because yes, Mike Lawler, by the way, and I think part of the reason is that in particular, there's a couple communities there, that are fairly large Haitian communities. So he's always been always a little bit of a maverick on a couple different ideas, and his area there, you look at it, his area there is a more moderate area. Don't you agree, Al? I mean, I don't know if a staunch, hardcore, 1,000% MAGA person, even though he has been extremely supportive of the president, I don't know if they could win. It's just like Maine in some ways. Maine is even more moderate. But if Susan Collins was Tim Burchett, you know what? She wouldn't get in. You know that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I wouldn't say I wouldn't applaud the mayor. I would never applaud Mondani.
No, I know. I'm being facetious.
No.
You and I feel the same way about that, Al. You know that.
No, of course. But I'm saying, he's everything I'm against in politics. But the problem with Lawler and Malliotakis is they made it look they're two Republicans, and they're running on the conservative banner in November. So when people see that, they see that you have to be people like when you believe in you have a true ideology. When it looks like you're pandering for votes, it's a turnoff. Like, for instance, Lawler has a lot of Haitians, from what I understand, in Spring Valley.
Yes,
Haitian
he does.
Americans.
He does.
Many of them are in the nursing profession. Many are registered nurses. Many are nursing assistants. So when he does that, it's hard to go back to conservatives in your district and say, I'm against illegal immigration in this country. It looks like you're trying to be both sides of the issue. And I don't think that's going to help him. I think at the end, it's going to be more of a hindrance than a help.
Now, I hear what you're saying. It's threading the needle, if you will, on some of the issues. But he's also been one of these people who, in different cases, he's spoken out sometimes not against the president, but against policies. And I think a lot of it is that's what he believes his constituents want to do. And that's what he believes his constituents feel. So he's sometimes, does more the moderate line. But it's a hard thing, Al, too, because remember, the choice is going to be, come November. Do you honestly think you think the Democrats going to get any conservative votes? I don't think so. The problem is if he is so conservative, even though he has been a great ally of President Trump's, but if he's so conservative, he's not going to get some of those independents. And he's in a tough district just because the Democrats have already come out and said, here are the districts that are sort of in the bullseye. And, he's inked it out. I think, he's done a great job as a politician. You and I both know him. And I think that he has a very tough, sort of needle to thread. And he's in a very vulnerable position just because the Democrats see that as a location that's not such a hardcore conservative district for the reason that you and I are just talking about. So if he goes too far to the right also, he won't get elected. So it's a hard call. I agree with you on the sticking true to your values, but he's been fairly consistent. And so for that, I applaud him for that. But he also has a very tough district, and he's trying to listen to his constituents. So, it's just like Susan Collins. Susan Collins the other day voted against a couple things that were not necessarily favorable to Trump, but she knows that that's what the people of Maine want. And if she was hardcore conservative, forget it. She would not be able to beat Graham Plattner. And boy, do we need to have an assurance that somebody beats Graham Plattner, right, Al? I mean, that would be disastrous.
100%. Lawler, I wasn't making this about Congressman Lawler.
No. I know you're not. I know you're not. Go ahead.
But his district prior, his predecessor was a Democrat. It's a very swing district.
Yep.
So I do think, even Malliotakis, she'll be able to survive her election. She voted for the legislation also. She'll be able to survive her district because, fortunately, Staten Island is still, it's going to change like everything. It's still heavily Republican. You have Vito Fossella, Frank Morano. But eventually, so when the Republicans like them voted for it, I wouldn't say it became more bipartisan, the legislation, but you did have some mavericks in the Republican Party like Lawler, vote for this legislation.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And again, sort of different reasons for it too as well. Yes. And it doesn't change why President Trump did it. And it doesn't change what the Supreme Court says. The Supreme Court essentially said it's left up to the administration to make the decision. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they're all going to get deported, but there's a good chance that some will. And if they've overstayed, especially anybody who has a criminal history, I mean, this is loony, Al. That's the problem. On the other hand, you've got these crazy ones that came in this week in New York that are all sitting there saying, let's not deport anybody, even somebody who has a murder rap. I mean, this is like loony land. So can you imagine, Al, if that seat, and let's just use the Lawler seat as an example, if that flips and it becomes a Democrat seat, and say they get the House, not they have to get 3. So it's not just that one. But if they can get 3 and they flip the House, what is loony will become norm in the Democratic Party. And that's a scary premise, right, Al?
It really is. And unfortunately, I'm a Republican, but I think that Lawler district is going to flip. It's a shame.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think he's going to pull it out. I think it's going to be very tough, but I think he is going to pull it out. I have faith in Mike Lawler. Al, thank you. It's always great to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Rita.
You too. Always awesome to hear from you. Let's go to Stan in Forest Hills, line 2. Stan.
Yeah, how are you? I don't agree at all with what he said. Lawler is gone. I agree on that. I think it'll go, but it won't go to a socialist, but it'll go. Here's the point you don't get.
Oh, okay, fill me and enlighten me. Enlighten me, Stan. Enlighten me.
I'm enlightening you, dear. You're the best, but I'm enlightening you.
All right, please.
These 3 got nominated, okay? They're not elected yet, okay, these 3 lunatics.
They're in a blue district.
I know what they're in, but they look at the percentage that they won by, 7%. There wasn't that many people that voted. I mean, if you can count them on your hand. The point is, all they have to do is put up somebody, even a Republican, that we can get up in there, and all you need is 15, maybe 20%, and you can beat these people. They're just nominated. The other factor is that
I agree. By the way, Stan, I agree. If they can really galvanize, they could. On the other hand, they'll galvanize even more for the general. I'm sure of that. They'll have a lot of funds behind them for the general because they see this as such a great, in their mind, this great victory, this great change moment. And they're going to put all their ducks on the line, and they have a lot of funds. So, yeah, maybe they didn't do a big turnout, but it was enough to win. A win's a win. You know, it's like, it doesn't, right. Yeah, no, a primary win is, but guess what? A lot of people discount Mondani, and yeah, he had a primary win, and then he rode it all the way to November.
Was it different? But here's the point, and you keep bringing this up. Once they get if they get elected, again, I've said this, and I said it yesterday, they can be stopped. They can't do anything if the Republicans control the Senate, and if the Democrats do control the House, which I want them to do, they just talk. They can't pass anything. They can't do anything. And they can be watched, as always, as all of them, as they did Marjorie Taylor Greene on the Republican. So, I don't want them elected, but if they do, they really can't do anything. If the Democrats control both houses, then you can start getting a little nervous. I'm not that nervous because I don't
Stan, if they control both houses, you and I are moving to Timbuktu.
Anywhere, sweetheart. I'm staying in New York. I ain't going nowhere.
Oh, well, then you're a very brave man.
Well,
because
how many times are you going to run, Rita? There's come a time you can't run anymore.
By the way, and I'm not going to run. I'm not like Rosie O'Donnell.
I know what you mean.
But
she's in Ireland, isn't she?
Yeah, but she came back because she's hosting
on a TV show, right?
She's guest hosting for Jimmy Kimmel, so she came back just briefly to fill in. But Stan, here's the deal: that I hear what you're saying, that they can't suddenly snap their fingers. They could, essentially, if they have the House and the Senate. But if they run the Democratic Party, which I believe they will run the Democratic Party, and I believe what's also happened by this is it has emboldened some people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to run for either Senate to kick out Schumer or to run for president. So there are big things in store, and they can cause a lot of havoc. They can force them to submit bills. They can block bills. They will be obstructionists, just to your point, tooth and nail, like every time they will be blocking legislation. They've already said, I mean, Graham Plattner, on his little, quote, victory speech that night when he won, said, I will be Trump's worst nightmare. I'm going to block this. I'm going to do this. They're going to call for impeachment of every single person. These people are hardcore. So it's bad news for America. It's not just some fringe crazy idea. They're going to be obstructionists, and they're going to try to dictate policy in the House if they get it. So everybody should hope that the great Congressman Mike Lawler stays where he is, because the last thing you want are these loonies to be running the insane asylum. That's the problem. Stan, thank you very much, and I'm glad you're staying put. Then I'll stay put if you will, too. 1-800-848-9222. And everybody, we will continue your calls on The Rita Cosby Show right after the break.
It's The Rita Cosby Show.
And coming up on The Rita Cosby Show, there's some new details, by the way, in the Nancy Guthrie case. We're going to get to that. Another wacky note coming up, and this one to TMZ, but authorities are looking at it, saying there may be something to it. And if you thought Chevalier and also the others, these three that got in this Tuesday, these Democratic Socialists, that they're crazy, wait till you hear about another one that is up for state senate in New York. Let's just say she has a lot in common with Hassan Piker. So that's all you need to know in this case. 1-800-848-9222. 1-800-848-9222. Let's go to Dom in Minnesota, line 5. Go ahead, Dom.
Yeah, Rita, can you hear me okay?
Yep, you sound great. Go ahead.
All right. So it looks like you got a case of CDS, Chevalier Derangement Syndrome.
That's good. Hey, by the way, you know what? I think I do, but you know what? I have a case of socialism derangement syndrome, and loony derangement syndrome, LDS.
No, but the reason I called is I think this is what I would suggest Trump do, because I think he's, this temporary protective status, all these Haitians and other people that have the TPS, they've been here since the 90s. They've got families, they've got established their lives and stuff like that. So in the last minute, if Trump pulls an ace in the hole and says, okay, I'll tell you what, I have some compassion, I'm going to let you guys stay on an individual basis, I'm going to figure this out, maybe he can get the Haitians to vote for him on the Republicans. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe he should show some compassion.
Oh, you know what? That's an interesting point. That maybe he could say, "Hey, I'm gonna review it all. If you have been an upstanding citizen and you haven't committed any crimes, then I'll let you stay in the country." That might happen. The only issue, and you're there in Minnesota, Dom. You know that they've been investigating fraud, and there's been a lot of these daycare fraud scams. It's huge money, and it's tied to the Haitian community. And in fact, there was just a story tonight that one of the ringleaders, who was tied to like $250 million, guess where they found him? They found that guy in Somalia. So you got the Haitians, the Somalians, you've got sort of like, they're sort of intertwined in different communities. So I don't know. That's the only reason. There's a lot of these sort of daycare frauds that kind of are interconnected with those communities, and also in Ohio too as well. So he might be a little leery to do it, but it would actually kind of be an interesting political move. Maybe he'll do it, or maybe he'll at least say, "Hey, I'll review it after the midterms, or I'll give you another year or two." Maybe that's the way to do it, Dom. Maybe you could be his advisor, Dom, and then he'd win handily the midterms. I think he's got, after all these loonies, Dom, don't you think he's got a better chance?
Yeah, because I think, Reagan did that. He gave a mass amnesty, but he did not fully prepare.
Yep, you're right. He did it. You're right. Follow the Reagan rule.
The Rita Cosby Show
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Rita Cosby Show
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.